Sherwin. I said earlier on, it's a story that is transfixed, that's had me transfixed for a better part of the last 3 decades. Tell us where things stand right now as the trial gets underway, and what are prosecutors and defense lawyers looking for in the jury?
Yeah, so a trial in the United States starts when jury selection starts. So when we report that the Tupac trial has begun, we have not had opening arguments from the prosecutor or the prosecution or the defense. What you have now is a process where a pool of jurors, up to 75 people, individual citizens of Clark County, where Nevada, Las Vegas is based, they are then brought in and then evaluated by both teams, right? And then certain people will be struck off the roll because they have travel engagements, they have health emergencies, and so they won't have the accommodation to be there for a 4 to 5 week trial moving forward. And so then the judge dismisses those potential jurors. They're whittling down the 75 to 36, and then the two teams will then strike them down to a pool of 16 jurors. Seated will be 12 jurors, right? Those are the ones that will go into the courtroom, and then we understand there'll be 4 alternates. And so this process is playing itself out this week. We do understand that August 17th, Monday next week, is when the expectation is that opening arguments will be heard, and then we get into the substance of the prosecutor's case, and certainly much later what the defense will put forward in terms of mitigation. So they are now selecting the jury, which will play a very, very important role in American jurisprudence and in American courtrooms. It's citizens that often decide guilt or innocence in processes like this.
So speaking of getting into the substance of the matters sometime next week then, what exactly does the prosecution have to prove? And how do we understand they will seek to use the accused, Duane Keffe D Davis's own words against him? Because, you know, we understand that part of it is based on a memoir that he wrote in 2019, which alludes to him having taken part, to having been inside that Cadillac from which the shots were fired.
Yes, this memoir could essentially prove to be quite self-incriminating. It's a memoir on his life where some of the details of the events of that September 1996 on the Las Vegas Strip played out. What the prosecution is not seeking to do here, Tulasizwe, is to prove that he fired the weapon necessary. They are seeking to prove that he was perhaps the organizer or the mastermind, for use of a better word, in terms of where this weapon was found, who placed it in the car. Let me just read you a little bit of what I've discovered. He placed himself, based on the memoir, he placed himself in this white Cadillac that pulled up alongside the BMW that had Tupac Shakur inside in 1996. He described himself in the memoir as sitting in the front passenger seat of that Cadillac. He described the shooting in the book. Davis wrote that Tupac appeared to reach beneath the seat and pull out a gun himself. Davis said that one of the men in the back seat grabbed a Glock, this is the back seat of the Cadillac, and fired back, right? That who fired first, I'm sure will be ventilated in court. And this is significant because it definitely places Davis at the scene. Reporting also on the memoir says that Davis described getting a handgun from an associate and putting it into the Cadillac before the shooting. So prosecutors will use this to support their allegation that Davis supplied the murder weapon. So they're not seeking here to say he pulled the trigger, but they are certainly seeking to place him as part of the organization, or certainly the reason why that gun was in that Cadillac. We understand that before the actual shooting happened, there was a confrontation between Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson, that subsequently died in gang-related violence 2 years later in a different incident. So he's not around anymore, but there was apparently a confrontation at the MGM Grand after what we understand was a Mike Tyson boxing match that Tupac Shakur attended. You know, we also hear from residents of Oakland, California. This is where Tupac moved to, where he really started to find his feet in the music scene. This is some of the views from the streets of Oakland. Let's watch.
Well, let's speak of the terms of poetic justice. If he is, in fact, the actual individual that plotted, planned, and I see why the prosecutor would bring him to court, if he's able to be held accountable for it, yeah, that would definitely bring closure to our community and for even America abroad, especially in this day and time, you know. But let it be what the truth really is.
He stood for a lot in his music and how he brought his storytelling to life in the community and what it means to be, out there in the streets, especially in Oakland, California. There's a lot of people who are trying to survive out here in the streets of Oakland, and I think his music definitely resonates with that. And, there's hope. He brings a lot of hope to the community.
I think about the seeds that he planted. I think about the way that he moved. It showed so many young black men like we can move and be in our spirit, and we can make mistakes, and we can still be human, and we can still be happy and have joy without everybody tying our entire existence to guns and drugs. And Tupac was that messenger for us, and he was such a powerful person. Like, you can't even mention Oakland without mentioning Tupac. And like many of us, we found our roots right here in Oakland, and Tupac is the same.
So this is also a little complication for the defense here. Davis apparently in this memoir does not say, I ordered the killing or I, fired the gun. And this is something that will be a complication for the prosecution moving forward. Davis is now distancing himself from the memoir, saying it was ghostwritten and that he actually had not read the book before these charges were brought when he was arrested in 2023.
All right, Sherwin, we're completely out of time. Don't have time to get to the element to do with Suge Knight, the man who was with Tupac in that BMW on that fateful night in September 1996. Thank you for that reporting, SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce.